In this lecture, we're going to add movement to the progress bar in the player. Progress bars are another visual feature that comes with audio players. Our player will be no different. There are two elements we'll want to update while the song is playing. There's the green bar, and then there's the little ball attached to the end of the bar. Both will need to be animated. We'll make the green bar move by its width. As for the ball, it's an element using absolute positioning. Its left CSS property will need to be changed. The great thing about this is that both the bar and ball can use the same value for moving them. You'll see what I mean in a moment. Above the progress bar is the name of the song and the user who uploaded it. We're going to make this part dynamic by mapping the state property that holds this data to the component. First, let's create a state property for storing the position of the elements we'll be moving. Go ahead and open the store file in your editor. Inside the store file, we'll create a state property called player progress with an initial value of 0%. We're using percentages because the width and left CSS properties will accept the percent unit. This way, we don't need to store two different values that accomplish the same thing. Let's switch to the player component file. We're going to map the player progress state property to the component. In the computed object, we're already mapping the duration and seek state properties to the component. We'll add on to the list by adding the player progress state property. Afterward, we'll want to bind this property to the progress bar elements. The elements for the audio progress bar can be found under a comment that says scrub. Nested inside this element, there are two more comments that say player ball and player progress bar. The ball is positioned using absolute positioning. We need to change the left property to move it. On it, bind the style attribute with object syntax. Set the left property to the player progress state property. We're going to copy this over to the player progress bar element. This is for the bar itself. Instead of changing the left position, we'll want to change its width. After making those changes, switch to the browser. Both the button and bar are positioned at the very beginning of the player. The bar won't be visible because it'll have a width of 0%. The next step is to update the player progress state property while the audio is playing. This update will result in the progress bar moving. Back in the player file, search for the progress function. Within this action function, we're updating the duration and seek properties. Let's update the player progress property to a template string. Inside this string, divide the values returned by the seek and duration functions. The result will be a numeric value between 0 and 1. To get a more accurate percentage, we'll need to multiply it by 100. Then, we'll add the percent symbol. Great, we're almost finished. The next thing we'll do is map the name of the song and uploader to the player component. Switch back to the player component file in your editor. The data for the song can be found in the current song state property. It's not mapped to the component at the moment. It'll need to be mapped if we want to display that information. In the computed object, we're mapping the state already. We'll add on to the list by mapping the current song state property. This property is where we stored the information from the database. We'll update the template to output the information we need. In the template block, search for a comment that says track info. This tag is where the song info is outputted. We'll start by adding the vif directive to the surrounding div element. The element shouldn't be viewable if the user hasn't selected a song to play. We'll want to hide the element. The condition for the vif directive will be current song.modified name. In some cases, you will want to use the length property to check if an object is empty. However, we're not doing that here. That's because the length property isn't completely reliable with computed properties, especially for objects. I find it better to check if a property is defined in the object. By default, the current song object is empty, so it won't have this property. It's the perfect thing to check for. If the modified name property is defined, we know that the user selected a song to play. We can move on to displaying the information. There's a span element with the class of song title. Replace the inner text with the expression current song.modified name. Below it is a span tag with the class of song artist. We'll replace the inner text with the expression current song.displayname. Once you've done that, save your changes. Then go to your browser and test the player. The bar and ball move while the audio is playing. You can even toggle the audio to check if they stop or move. In addition, the name of the song and artist appears above the progress bar as we want it. Congrats! We have a fully functioning player. It's a very simple one. We could add a lot more features to the player, but I don't want to get too repetitive. There's one last issue I want to resolve. I'm going to quickly navigate to a song's page. If I were to press the play button on the player and then press the play button on the page, you'd notice that we get multiple audio sources playing at once. We don't want this. If the play button on the page gets pressed, we want to pause the current audio and destroy the instance. After the instance has been destroyed, we can start a new one. That will stop the application from playing multiple audio sources. Back in the editor, go to the New Song Action function. At the beginning of the function, we'll want to check if the sound state property is an instance of the howl object. We'll create a conditional statement to handle this check. In the conditional statement, we're using the instance of operator to help us check if the sound object is an instance of the howl object. If it is, we can invoke a function called unload. The unload function will pause the current audio. It'll also delete the instance and remove it from memory. This is beneficial to us because we don't have to worry about Howler causing memory leaking issues. After making that change, go ahead with testing the player. If I press the play button twice, we should only hear one song play. The previous audio source will have been destroyed. Fantastic! We've got a working player. We're able to play and toggle the audio. The next step in our journey is to change the audio's current position if the user clicks on the timeline. We'll tackle this issue in the next lecture.